Apologies for missing the last few months. It's been a bit of a crazy time, so I'm very happy to be back and very happy to be here. As I was saying earlier, this is always a fun meeting, and unfortunately, I've been trapped in not fun meetings. So good to be here today. So before we get started, I would just like to acknowledge that many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships, both historic and modern, with the territories upon which we are located. Today, this area is home to many Indigenous peoples across Turtle Island. We acknowledge that our watershed forms a part of the treaty and traditional territory of the southeastern Anishinaabe. It is on these ancestral and territory lands that we live and work. To honor this legacy, we commit to being stewards of the natural environment and undertake to have a relationship of respect with our treaty partners. Okay, with that being done, I would like to take a look at adoption of the agenda. Has everybody had a chance to review the agenda? Any changes, concerns, deletions? No? All right, great. Can I see if there's any motion? Yep. And a seconder, and can I get a vote on that, please? Perfect. Any declaration of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Okay. 3, approval of the minutes. Has everybody reviewed the minutes from our previous session? Any comments on those? Any changes, omissions, deletions? Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes? All right. And a vote, please. Excellent, thank you. So was there any business arising from the minutes that we would need to review before starting today? Yes, sir.
I have a question. We deferred an item on the Halliburton Environmental Corridor because our municipality hadn't reviewed and our municipality on Tuesday endorsed that project. And so I was wondering if we were dealing with that today.
Through Mr. Chair, we're not dealing with that specifically today. Could I easily be brought forward for support, or we could do it at the next meeting of the authority, whichever is preferred.
Okay.
So, is there any time sensitive element of that?
I did not see any specific time sensitive element on that letter, but I could take a quick look at it if you want and come back to it perhaps during correspondence if that works out.
That would be great.
Just further information, our municipality is sending our endorsement of that project to KRCA.
Okay, perfect, excellent. Was there any other business arising out of the minutes? Okay, we have no deputations, so we are going to move on to presentations. First presentation is on the Lake Management Plan implementation of 2019 and 2023. Christy.
And Carolyn.
And Carolyn.
And Carolyn. So I just wanted to take an opportunity to introduce Carolyn. I believe she's been in front of this board once before. Carolyn has undertaken the update to the implementation action plan from 2023 or 2024 onto 2028. But today she's going to provide a bit of a high level update as to some of the accomplishments that we recognized in the first 5 years of the plan implementation. So these updates also include the activities from this year, starting in 2019, and going through to the end of this year. So Carolyn, do I have to work that thing? Yes. So this is for maybe?
Mind if we turn off 1 or 2 of the lights?
Dim them down or?
Down.
Down. Oh, okay. That's down backwards. Yeah, okay. Perfect.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. As Christy said, I'm just going to go over some of our accomplishments for the Lake Management Implementation Action Plan from 2019 through to this year. So just presentation outline. I'm going to give a brief background. I'm sure you're all aware of what that was about. I want to highlight some of our key milestones. And then I'm going to go through each program and provide some updates, and then there'll be time at the end for some questions. So the background. So in 2017, City of Kawartha Lakes Council requested that a multi-year implementation plan for the lake management plans be developed. So to address this request, Kawartha Conservation worked alongside a task force to develop the 5-year lake management implementation action plan, 2019 through 2023. The goal of the implementation action plan was to maintain and build on the momentum of involvement and investment that was generated through the lake management planning process, with the goal of maintaining and improving the appeal of our lakes as an engine for economic growth. So our milestones. So over the course of the last 5 years, the team here at Kawartha Conservation has hit some really significant milestones during the implementation process. Each year, they've been able to increase the number of trees, shrubs, and native species planted and the length of shoreline restored. So to bring all of this into context, the team has planted 153,311 trees and shrubs, 10,846 native plants, and restored a total of 7,785 feet of shoreline, which I think is fantastic. So moving forward in the presentation, I'm going to discuss each program and the successes that they've had. As mentioned before, staff worked alongside a task force to develop 5 key program areas. So we have our incentive grant program, our general program, rural program, shoreline, and urban program. So the first program I'll discuss is our community grant program, which is part of our incentive grant program made up of 2 things, which is our incentive grant and our landowner incentive fund. The community grant program was created to work with grassroots organizations that are empowered to take action towards implementing the lake management plan recommendations. Kawartha Conservation worked with these agencies to leverage funding towards implementing projects that had a positive impact on water quality in our lakes. Over the last 5 years, a total of 12 projects were completed, which included an educational awareness campaign, rain garden planting, urban tree planting, aquatic plant removals, a climate change initiative through a tree planting, and a shoreline erosion control and naturalization project. Through this program, we were able to grant a total of $67,337 and a total of $150,209 in additional funding. The Landowner Incentive Fund is one of Kawartha Conservation's most popular programs, with most years now being oversubscribed by private landowners throughout the City of Kawartha Lakes. The program was created because much of the land base in City of Kawartha Lakes is privately owned, and managing private property can be difficult and challenging for some property owners. This program is designed to inspire and move landowners towards land stewardship practices that will have a greater impact on our landscape. The Landowner Incentive Fund provides landowners with seed money, advice, guidance, and support to help the best stewardship decisions for their properties and the rest of the surrounding communities. So through this project, we're able to see a total of 88 projects completed on private land. So that's 30 agricultural projects, which can range from livestock exclusion fencing and barnyard eavesdrops, 25 waterfront projects, which include stream bank and erosion control and naturalization projects, 27 rural projects, which include projects such as smaller scale tree plantings, septic upgrades, and well decommissionings, and 6 urban projects, which include projects such as urban naturalization and rain gardens. With all 88 projects completed, we successfully granted a total of $162,856 and leveraged $604,970 in investment back into our community. So moving into our general program, the implementation oversight and coordination program was enacted to ensure that collaboration continued between multiple partners at various levels. This was to make certain that projects and programs within the partner agencies included actions that had been recommended in the lake management plans. In the past, staff met with the chair and past chair of the Community Advisory Panel and the Science and Technical Advisory Committee to discuss implementation and how to involve outside agencies in spreading the word about good practice stewardship projects throughout our watershed. The outcome of that was an interactive map on our website where community groups and private landowners could go to submit their projects to us to be plotted on the map. Unfortunately, the map didn't have a significant enough impact and not enough information was added over the years, aside from the projects that Kawartha Conservation has completed ourselves. So from this, we were able to identify that there is a gap. So moving forward, we're going to look to correct that over the next 5 years of implementation. We're going to be seeking out those community groups rather than having those groups seek us. However, through that though, we were still able to work with, we were able to develop new and lasting connections with valuable community groups. This was achieved through delivering the incentive grant program and our rural program, and includes partnerships with groups such as Pinoy Association, Forest Ontario and their 50 million tree program, and agriculture groups like Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs, so OMAFRA, and Alice Peterborough. Another example of an important partnership that was developed was through our aquatic plant program. Our staff fostered a positive relationship with Trent Severn Waterway, which has now opened the door to be some work to be completed alongside Carleton University. So our sedimentation and erosion control planning. So as we all know, release of material from construction and development sites to local water courses can have significant long-term impacts. Better erosion and sediment control management is priority recommendations with all of the lake watershed and stormwater monitoring plans. The sediment and erosion control planning program was developed to increase local expertise and application of erosion and sediment control standards when reviewing, undertaking, and inspecting development sites and alteration projects throughout the Kawartha Lakes. To achieve this goal, staff collaborated with technical and planning staff, public works, and site inspection staff at the municipality to ensure safe and effective techniques were being implemented. Our team has enhanced their expertise by securing and renewing their certificate as a certified inspector of sediment and erosion control. This certificate provides staff with the training they need to understand the risks of erosion and sediment on construction sites into waterways, training in review of erosion and sediment control measures, and best practice techniques that can be applied at construction sites for efficiency and compliance. Along with this training, staff members attended a professional development workshop that provided them with increased knowledge on best industry practices, along with the opportunity to network and establish contacts within the industry. Our staff hosted a public workshop in Fenland Falls to educate local contractors, private landowners, and industry professionals on the importance of proper erosion and sediment control. This workshop was well received with just over 120 guests in attendance. We actually have another one coming up that is on Thursday, December 7th in Fenland Falls again. So continue to educate. Our staff completed several site visits to active construction sites to get a better understanding of where deficiencies are and identify the local approaches to applying the control methods. By doing this, staff were able to then develop 5 fact sheets to distribute to our local contractors and landowners. The fact sheets include silt fencing, fiber rolls, straw bale, check dams, calculating erosion risk and slope, and erosion control blankets. These 5 fact sheets are sent out during the permitting process with the intent that private landowners, local contractors, and developers will use those proper protocols. These fact sheets are also available on our website along with 4 training videos for the public to refer to when they are doing construction. Moving into our rural program, we have our agricultural stewardship. This program was developed to provide a range of technical services and incentives to assist farmers in practicing beneficial farmland management to improve groundwater and surface water quality. Programs were geared to meet the needs of various commodity groups with the focus on priority actions, such as managing soil loss by increasing natural cover, reducing agricultural runoff, enhancing riparian areas, and protecting sensitive watercourses from livestock damage. So over the course of the last 5 years of implementation, Kawartha Conservation staff dove headfirst into learning about farmland management and working with our local farmers. Staff conducted over 50 on-site farm consultations with farmers, educating them on best management practices or BMPs. Our staff also connected with different farming groups through attendance and presentations at the annual agricultural commodity group meetings through City of Kawartha Lakes VIP Farm Show, the Environmental Farm Plan workshops, East Central Farm Show, and the Victoria Soil and Crop Improvement Association. Along with that, staff participated in both the East Central Farm Stewardship Collaborative and Alice Peterborough Participant Advisory Committee. Through all of this, staff have hosted agricultural outreach and educational events for the farming community. This includes a BMP webinar with partners Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs, the MAFRA, Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, and Toronto Region Conservation Authority. And we've also hosted an agriculture symposium with a presentation from Thames River Phosphorus Reduction Collaborative. In the last 2 years, our staff were successful in receiving a grant from OMAFRA that funded 9 agricultural BMP demonstration projects across the Upper Talbot sub-watershed, which contributed to the Talbot River Healthy Environment Initiative. These projects included buffer strip plantings along the Talbot River, construction of manure storage, exclusion fencing installations, and installation of alternate watering systems. As part of all of these projects, water quality samples were collected prior to groundbreaking to have a baseline data set for comparison with post-implementation samples, along with samples that'll be collected semi-annually until the completion of the program. This will help staff to understand the impacts of that the BMPs have on water and ecosystem quality. A rural residential stewardship program. So rural landowners have an opportunity to impact their watershed's health simply because they often own and manage large areas, which can be home to significant forested lands, wetlands, streams, and pollinator habitat. The rural residential stewardship program set out to provide rural landowners the tools and resources they need to help protect and enhance the quality of the watershed, which by also saving themselves money, time, and effort when managing their lands. So the rural residential stewardship program was actually set to begin in 2021. However, our team was successful in securing funding in 2019 from Forest Recovery Program operated by Forest Ontario. The Forest Recovery Program was designed to minimize the devastating effects of climate change by planting trees to restore forest canopy cover. Through this program, the team was able to put shovels in the ground that much sooner and therefore accomplished 4 large-scale tree plantings and put 5,500 trees in the ground. After a successful 2019, the team was devastated to have to put planting on hold due to COVID-19. However, the team spent most of the year securing funding for a new program through Forest Ontario, the 50 million tree program, and consulting with landowners for future plantings. The 50 million tree program was designed to increase forest cover by making tree planting easier and more affordable for private landowners. Since working with the 50 million tree program, we have successfully planted 32 private landowner properties and put 57,265 trees in the ground between 2021 and 2023. Along with those programs, we also offer an over-the-counter seedling sale. So from 2019 through till this year, we sold an impressive 75,150 trees to City of Kawartha Lakes residents. This brings our grand total to 137,915 trees in the ground just from this program. Our investigative upstream monitoring program. So while water quality in Kawartha Lakes is generally good, there are areas where we need to take action to improve the quality of our surface water. The lake management planning process helped to identify which streams entering our lakes have high concentration of nutrients. Because of this, the investigative upstream monitoring program was developed to focus on identifying the key areas within those streams and rivers where nutrients and contaminants are entering our surface water. The intention of this program was to reduce data gaps by performing more comprehensive water quality and quantity data collection over a 3-year period. This was done to identify areas of water quality degradation and plan for remediation or restoration through the stewardship department. Through 2019, 2020, and 2021, the team monitored McLaren Creek, Jennings Creek, and Reforestation Creek. The data collected over the 3-year period has shown that each creek exceeds provincial guidelines and federal guidelines for phosphorus, nitrates, and to some degree chloride. This analyzed data was provided to the stewardship department for consideration when working on project implementation and landowner outreach for other programs. The team also completed both a technical and summary report on their findings, which has been published on our website for the community to access. And starting this year through 2024, the team will be working alongside Trent University to monitor 3 new streams, including Sucker, Stony, and Janetville Creek. On top of this, the team has also developed a rural extension of this program. So this investigative upstream monitoring rural extension is looking at characterizing water quality, flow regime, and aquatic life at the outlets of 4 rural streams in Lindsay. So this will include Sinister, Jennings, Distillery, and Albert Creek. Using unique approaches, the team will be looking at nutrient loading, salt inputs, sediment inputs, and E. coli. This project will also use a new approach to capture data. Microbial source tracking will be used to identify the sources of E. coli. So for example, whether it's geese, cows, gulls, dogs, etc. When the program has completed, a report will be available on our website for the community to use, and the information will also be provided to our stewardship department for consideration when working on future projects and programs. So our aquatic plant management is a priority recommendation in most of the lake management plans. The proliferation of aquatic plants can have significant effects on the enjoyment, perception of water quality, and the sustainability of our lakes. As such, residents need a practical approach for controlling nuisance aquatic plants. The Aquatic Plant Control Program looked at the impact aerators have on the growth of nuisance aquatic plants and the effect they will have on physical, chemical, and biological parameters of the nearshore waters. The first year of this program was spent researching the different styles and brands of aerators, as well as obtaining permits from Parks Canada and completing design plans. We were able to test one brand of aerator, the Casco 3/4 horsepower dock mount aquatic thruster, in 3 study locations: Lake Scugog, Balsam Lake, and Sturgeon Lake. The pictures here are of Balsam Lake. These sites were monitored, and the data showed that there was a significant reduction in plants growing in the immediate zone of influence of the thruster. The plant coverage declined by about 1/3, and plant biomass declined to about 1/10 when compared to nearby areas with no thruster activity. As we look forward to the future of this project, we are pleased to say that there has been a partnership in a research collaborative, and we were successful in obtaining an NSERC grant from the federal government. So over a 2-year period starting this year, we are studying the impacts of aquatic plant control techniques on nearshore aquatic ecosystems, impact of bulk wakes have on shoreline erosion, and strategies for naturalizing shoreline and urbanized shoreline settings. So this will be undertaken on the Trent Severn Waterway and Rideau Canal, and the lead on this research collaborative will be Carleton University. So our shoreline stewardship program. So the majority of shoreline properties in the city of Kawartha Lakes are privately owned. Caring for shoreline properties presents several challenges, including landowners' enjoyment of their property, nutrient loading, erosion, and flooding. The shoreline stewardship program provides support to landowners whose daily activities have significant impact on the health of our lakes and the ability for the community to enjoy the resource. This program provides landowners the private consultations to help landowners identify and implement in-the-ground projects that will align with the recommendations of the lake management plans. Along with these consultations, the program also looked to implement beach restoration projects that improved our public beaches and helped to keep them open through the summer months. The program also aimed to determine E. coli and nutrient concentrations through beach sampling, and through doing so, create lasting partnerships with the Haliburton Kawartha Pine Ridge District Health Unit and the City of Kawartha Lakes Parks and Recreation Department. Throughout this program, our team successfully completed over 50 land consultations with both private landowners and community groups. The team was also successful in hosting a community-based workshop and were able to work with local real estate agents to provide new lakeshore home buyers with an informational watershed welcome package to encourage proper shoreline stewardship to new buyers. Through the pandemic, our team was also successful in completing a shoreline restoration project with the Sturgeon Point Golf Club, which are these photos here. The project was well received and is a great demonstration site for proper shoreline stewardship practices. Along with community outreach and the shoreline restoration, we worked alongside the Haliburton Kawartha Pine Ridge District Health Unit to monitor 3 different beaches to assess the water quality, help with determining summer beach postings, and be able to provide both the city and Kawartha Conservation Stewardship Team with recommendations on stewardship activities at each beach. The 3 beaches our team monitored were Bobcaygeon Beach, Bond Street Beach in Fenland Falls, and Omimi Beach. Each beach had several monitoring sites that looked at field characteristics like pH levels, chemical characteristics like nutrient levels, and microbiological, specifically E. coli. The team determined that each site would benefit greatly from stormwater runoff management and creating more riparian buffer areas. To top all of this off, the stewardship department organizes a semi-annual native plant sale. The plant sale encourages the community to purchase native plants at a reduced cost. The team developed plant kits for the community to purchase and plant at home, depending on what their specific needs were. The kits include shoreline stabilizers, understory oasis, pollinator gardens, and both large and small rain gardens. Since 2019, a total of 7,153 native plant species have been sold to 212 private landowners within the Kawartha Lakes. Shoreline planning and policy. So enhanced shoreline protection through planning and policy is a priority recommendation in most of the lake plans. Several municipalities across Ontario are considering or have considered implementing stricter or more detailed land use policies around their lakes. By undertaking background research on shoreline policies, Kawartha Conservation can provide the municipality with feedback on the feasibility of pursuing a more rigorous approach to shoreline policies for our lakes. Through meetings with municipal staff and 2 summary reports provided to the city, Kawartha Conservation was able to successfully help to inform on rural zoning, bylaw reviews, network with the City of Kawartha Lakes Planning Department, provide a better understanding of how shoreline land use impacts our water quality, and provide feedback on where the City of Kawartha Lakes municipality compares to other municipalities with respect to shoreline land use policies. Research was also conducted on the socioeconomic and environmental changes in shoreline land use across the city of Kawartha Lakes. A hired enviro analytics company began a preliminary scan of the socioeconomics of our lake management planning area. The research conducted followed trends in income and dwelling permanency, which resulted in a data snapshot rather than a full multi-year assessment. Unfortunately, due to population density, the scope of the study had to remain relatively limited unless more investment could be put into the research. Our nearshore monitoring program. So an identifiable data gap that exists in each of the completed lake management plans is the lack of nearshore water quality. The nearshore area is under direct influence of activities performed on the shoreline, so urban development, agriculture, shoreline alterations, etc. In addition to acting as a transition zone, this is highly influenced from waters offshore and land and tributary drainage. The data collected in nearshore areas can act as an early warning indicator for the lakes and thus identify problem areas or hotspots of degraded water quality. The nearshore monitoring program used 170 citizen scientists to collect comprehensive water chemistry and physical baseline surveys on Scugog, Sturgeon, Pigeon, Balsam, and Cameron Lakes. The sites were monitored monthly through June and October, with each site monitoring water quality and benthic sampling. The information that was gathered from citizen scientists was used for the stewardship team as a jumping off point to initiate stewardship priorities and actions around each of the lakes. In 2019, the team collected data from Lake Scugog and Sturgeon Lake. The data collected from the Lake Scugog sampling sites found that the biggest issue was excessive total phosphorus and the corresponding algal growth. There was also found to be instances of high E. coli levels. However, they were never consistently high, which is encouraging considering the number and age of septic systems on Lake Scugog. The other lake monitored in the first year was Sturgeon Lake. The data collected from those sites suggested that nutrient levels, specifically total phosphorus, are not currently above the provincial water quality objectives, but are approaching those objectives. The data collected in 2021 from Balsam, Cameron, Sturgeon, and Pigeon Lake all showed that water temperature was not of concern, but will need to be continued to be monitored due to climate change. Phosphorus nutrient pollution was not problematic. Chlorophyll A levels were low, indicating a low risk of algal growth, and E. coli levels were present but low. But this is indicative of small animal inputs from frequent shoreline visitors, so waterfowl or domestic dogs. The values were never consistently high, which is again encouraging considering the number and age of septics on all of those lakes. From all these findings, two peer-reviewed articles were published. So we have the community science-based monitoring reveals the role of land use scale in diving nearshore water quality in large, shallow Canadian lake, and nearshore plankton and macro invertebrate community structure is strongly associated with macrophyte abundance in a large lake with high shoreline development. This program also generated a PhD thesis on assessing nearshore water quality and biological condition in Kawartha Lakes using a community science approach. And our final program is the bluescaping program. So the City of Kawartha Lakes has several urban centers that are currently growing and are poised for even more growth in the coming years. New developments, highway extensions, and our standard of living here are all very attractive to people looking to relocate out of the GTA. Kawartha Conservation developed a bluescaping program to support our growing community and ensure that our critical water resource is protected and maintained. The bluescaping program is designed to protect our urban communities from the impacts of flooding and stormwater runoff through attracting additional investment in developing low-impact development demonstration sites. Demonstration sites in key communities can showcase to our residents how they can create beautiful and functional urban landscapes that serve their needs while providing multiple services to the community at large, including reduction in lake sedimentation and localized flooding. Our stewardship team successfully obtained a grant through demonstration sites. These sites include a rain garden installation and tree planting at Alexandra Public School, a rain garden here at Ken Reed, a rain garden at Omimi Beach, and the Kent Street Silvacell installation for Lindsay's downtown revitalization project. The team also received funding from the Environmental Damages Fund in the amount of $75,000. This funding was to go towards restoration of fish habitat within the urban areas of the City of Kawartha Lakes. Over the course of 2021 and 2022, a total of 10 projects were selected and restoration projects completed that had a focus on water quality improvement, stream bank erosion and sediment control, Because of this funding, we were able to restore a total of 1,496 feet of stream bank and plant a total of 1,657 trees, shrubs, and native plants within the urban areas of City of Kawartha Lakes. On top of that, our team also worked alongside a landscape designer to create 3 different garden guides that will help provide landowners help them to implement healthy gardens, natural gardens on their property. Each of these guides is tailored to a specific type of garden, and subsequently one of our garden kits through our native plant sale. We have the pollinator gardens, the rain gardens, and understory, and each include information such as design templates, species lists, maintenance tips, and more. These guides were made available on our website for landowners to download or can be picked up here at our office, and we also bring them to all of our shows that we attend. That's it.
That's all.
That's it. Well, that was an amazing amount of information.
Yeah.
It's delivered at 2 times speed, which is fantastic, which is awesome. Thank you very much. That was an enormous amount of very good news in a short period of time. So I really appreciate that. I want to open this up. Was there any questions for the content? Yes, sir.
The chair, I'm just curious, Carleton was mentioned a few times and they're doing the Trent Severn waterway studies going forward. Is it because of specific programs that they run, or are there other universities going to be tied into this? Trent had a fair bit of studies in this same area. I'm just curious why Carleton is.
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Chair, I might call on Nancy to provide a little bit more background because this is more a program from her team. But Carleton was interested in incorporating not just the Trent Severn waterway, but also the Rideau Canal, which is more in their area. And I think that they were looking at a specialized grant through NSERC in order to fund that. But Nancy,
So they had an interest in aquatic plants, but like Christy said, it was along the Trent Severn waterway in their area. And then they saw that we were also doing aquatic plant interest, so they asked us if we wanted to partner with them on the NSERC.
Yeah.
The other thing I would like to know too, you were talking, they're doing water samples before and after in some of your rural stuff.
mm-hmm.
I know it's not finished yet, so are you seeing what you expected as far as the sampling?
Yeah, so we haven't actually done the analysis on those water samples yet because we're still taking those water samples. We will be up until the end of December, and then we'll be looking at doing a report for March 31st to OMAFRA, and we'll bring that forward to the board at that point.
I guess, thank you, and through you. Regarding the erosion certificate, could you please explain who gives this erosion certificate and who can take the course?
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Chair, again, I'm going to turn this over to Nancy because it is her team, but it's a TRIECA certification, I believe, that looks after that. So it's an external certification board that runs through the programs and makes sure that you're meeting those objectives. But Nancy, is that?
Yeah, it's a course that they go and they take, they learn about all this, and I believe there's a test at the end that they get certified for.
And sorry, who's they again? Do
It's an advisory board.
municipal staff take this erosion certificate?
Absolutely.
Is there anyone to kind of make sure they?
So one of the neat aspects of this program was that, you know, our staff, Brett, who is certified within our team, was actually taking that expertise and sharing it with our municipal partners so that they knew what they were supposed to be looking for. But yes, it is open to municipal members in order to take the course. Mark, I saw you nodding your head. You might have a little bit more information on that.
Yeah, I know the short forms. I don't know the long form. So, but it is, there's actually a conference, which is the TRIECA. Part of it is, the EI part is erosion sedimentation control. And so they get together in order to share the best information. And then there's a certification piece as well. So we have it's actually our fisheries or aquatic biologist, who's the certified member for that, and yeah, he eats it up. He loves it because it helps protect fish habitat. He's a fish guy, so it really ties in nicely with actually our permitting program as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I just have a few. We don't have an Alice anymore, do we? In Kawartha Lakes.
It's through Peterborough. It's
Yeah.
Alice Peterborough, so we
Used to have
participate.
one in Kawartha Lakes.
Yeah, I don't think it was big enough in Kawartha Lakes, so Alice Peterborough takes in the Kawartha Lakes.
Okay.
So it boundaries.
They had a specific one for Kawartha Lakes.
Yeah.
Didn't, okay. And the Bob Cajun Beach was closed quite a bit this summer. And, you know, got an aerator in there and it was put back and it really didn't help. And I think it comes down to the goose poop. So I know that the Parks and Rec, you know, have a gizmo, you know, they on their tractor, but it kind of just grinds it up and puts it into the sand. Are there any other ways of dealing with that, especially with children on the beach too?
Yeah, so like I know our team back, so the Bob Cajun Beach was one of the first beaches that we did because the City of Kawartha Lakes was undertaking that great big redesign. And so what we were trying to do is identify where sedimentation, where E. coli was entering into the water so that those aspects could be built into the plan, the overall plan when you were redesigning the beach. There's lots of different things, but it really does depend on a site-specific situation. Like, is the E. coli coming just from the geese that are pooping on the sand, or is it stuff like in Omimi? We found that most of the E. coli that was entering into the water was actually already locked into the soil. So, you know, it really depends on where that E. coli is coming from, how you would design the project in order to restore it. And
So there needs to be some more.
Yeah,
information.
if there was an appetite to take on a larger restoration project like that, then we would have to do the study to really understand so that we knew that we were putting the right treatment in order to
Getting
close that we
all the
want.
time, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah. And just, I know it was in the original lake management plan, the Bob Cajun Dam, you know, fish going over or under to help with walleye spawning. Are we dropping that, or is that something that
Yeah, so that's a
project
project.
Trent Severn? Just to let you know, because of the bridge being out in Bob Cajun, I've talked to Trent Severn and trying to get a few things extra, and that was brought up. So just, yeah, I don't want to lose that.
Yeah, so that is a project that was brought forward in the second iteration of the implementation action plan. So you'll see within that there is a Bob Cajun Dam study or project. It is grant dependent. So we're looking at trying to develop the partnership and find the funding in order to undertake the study to understand what's happening. So again, that's a Brett project. That's our aquatic biologist project, but he has been making some headway with some of the community partners and with Trent Severn Waterway, just having some of those conversations.
Yeah.
But to move forward, we are looking for some grant funding.
Trent Severn.
Absolutely.
And do we partner with the Kawartha Lake stewards, you know, in getting our data?
So I'll let Nancy talk to the data.
Yes, we do partner with Kawartha Lake Stewards. They're actually helping us with the temperature monitoring on the lakes right now through our climate action program. So yeah, we liaison with them. And Brett, our aquatic biologist, is always back and forth with them, and he's writing articles and sharing.
Great. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
Just one question through you, Chair. Can I have someone reach out to me? I had a residential meeting in Janetville last weekend, and the Janetville Creek did come up with some concerns and observations that I do want to share, but I'm putting it to you because I keep forgetting. So if you can reach out to me, that'd be great. Thanks.
Not a problem.
Very smart.
I forgot.
Sure.
Yeah, when I forgot, you kind of went over it like salt inputs. So would you be working with municipalities, roads crews, director of, public works on that? I've had actually a bunch of people complain about the amount of salt being used on the roads, especially close to water bodies. So, how do you see that rolling out?
Yeah, Nancy, I don't know if you have an update on it. I know we've had some discussions.
with respect to which of the investigative upstream, the rural extension, we are collecting information in the rural extension right now. It's like we're kind of like a pilot project, collecting and gathering information at this time. So we haven't really analyzed, we're going to analyze the results shortly to see how we're doing. But yeah, ultimately, whatever results we get, we would be looking at contacting the municipality or partnering on, making improvements to whatever urban stream or rural stream that we're dealing with.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Carol, comment.
Okay, thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question about the thrusters on the docks you were using for some of the projects there. So they actually work by creating a current right shores to the shoreline, right? And years ago. Just wondering like how aggressive they are or what sort of things. I'm just worried like these are in fairly shallow waters. Are they having any effect on the lower like the benthic community down there? Is it like, can it possibly erode the bottom of the, or to drive some of that stuff away, or?
Yeah. So through you, Mr. Chair, it's definitely, that's the key piece for why we were doing the study. So one of the things we heard over and over and over again is that landowners were using them, but Trent Severn Waterway didn't permit them. So it wasn't within their power to permit them. So people were using them illegally. And so we undertook the study to really have a better understanding and provide Trent Severn Waterway with the information they needed to determine whether or not they could permit it or whether it was actually working against their functions. What we're finding from that, I would have to turn over to Nancy because again, it's her team that's been doing it. And I don't even know if we have the data yet.
No data yet.
Yeah.
We're right now analyzing the data and Brandon is spending on this number 6. Results I think with the clusters that were implemented this year. So we will report here.
But as far as the situation,
they are a win. They have, proved to be successful in that regard. The question then becomes, what are some of the other pieces that have to be considered before you just go ahead and let people do whatever they're going to do?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you mind if I have one more question?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm thinking again about there was one statement when you talked about the on-farm agricultural best practices, and then you were, doing stream monitoring and finding that the phosphorus and nutrient load was still above levels and so on. So it made me think, is there an opportunity to go back to places in the future with more staff and more money to see how those implementations on farm are acting and whether or not they're sort of the farm is performing better than it did before?
Yeah, so again, through you, Mr. Chair, so that's part of our OMAFRA project is taking a look at the effectiveness of those on-farm implementations. So we're doing the testing beforehand and the testing after the fact. A lot of the testing that Nancy's team is doing on some of the different urban and rural upstream monitoring are not necessarily also the rivers and streams where we have current projects. So we're going to take that information and we look at it and then we can prioritize what landowners do we want to reach out to, because we know we have this problem in this area. We can reach out to those landowners and see if we can come up with a project that would help benefit that. But to be able to justify that, we're taking a look at this project that we have going on in the Talbot River subwatershed and saying, we know that this works because we did it on these streams and we saw a reduction of X or Y. And so that's part of that study that we're doing with OMAFRA right now.
Excellent.
Carol?
Sorry, yes, thank you to you, Mr. Chair. Just to follow up on that point that Kriya mentioned here, is it the belief of the authority that the main source of phosphorus in water comes from agricultural operations or from maybe a more urban setting?
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Chair, I'm going to hand this one over to Nancy because Nancy's team was responsible for doing the lake management planning. But part of that process was to try and identify where some of those sources are coming from. And part of the additional monitoring that we're doing through the implementation action plan is to help us now narrow down exactly where they're coming from. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Nancy, what we're finding is it's not necessarily one subset community that's responsible more so than any others. It's a combination of a bunch of different things.
So it depends on the environment, in terms of the type of phosphorus that's running in. So like in an urban environment, you can have like your runoff from stormwater, coming into your stream, affecting phosphorus levels due to possibly septic systems or catch basins and that kind of stuff. Rural, yeah, we're looking at, agricultural. So it depends on the surrounding area and where the stream is going to.
Okay, thank you. Yes, it's just that a number of years ago, the price of phosphorus to add to farmland got to about $1,500 a ton, and agriculturalists got very stringy about where they put it.
Yeah.
They didn't want to put it anywhere where it was ground off. It went into a band about that far away in the seed. So they didn't lose any of it because it was just like gold.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Just quickly through you, Mr. Chair, just wanted to say that the less academic, I have something less academic to say, surprise. I just thought the real estate package was, when I was reading this, was very, very profound. I mean, all of this is deep and heavy and meaningful. That one though jumped out at me from the education standpoint. That's huge. If we have people that are going around and selling the properties and explaining right at that very moment this is encouraged, I bet that's going to have massive, much bigger repercussions maybe than it looks like on a little simple. I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, that's a project that we've been doing in combination with the Environmental Advisory Committee with the City of Kawartha Lakes. And we found it to be really beneficial. And now being able to identify to those landowners, this is, there's funding opportunities if you want to do improvement projects, I think is also key.
Very clever.
Okay, great. Can I get a motion to receive the land management plan implementation 2019 to 2023 for City of Kawartha Lakes? What? Secretary Carroll? And a vote, please. Excellent. All right, 6.1.1, same crew. You have the, are we doing that?
Yep.
Right. Can I get a motion? You're gonna do the
Education.
Okay,
Yeah.
here you go. Go on, please.
Set up. So while Melanie is pulling up the presentation, I'd like to introduce Melissa Creasy-Alexander, who is one of our conservation areas technicians. And I don't know how, but over 6 years of her employment with us, she's managed to avoid coming in front of the board.
Oh, the day
So-
has come.
And so when I had the opportunity to have 2 presentations done in one meeting, I reeled her in real quick. And so Melissa, in addition to a lot of our conservation areas management and upkeep, she's also taken on a key role in our education and outreach programming, which includes, as you're going to hear from her, everything from geared to curriculum programs to special events, community events, and that sort of thing. So I'm going to turn it over to Melissa to keep you up to date on everything that we've been doing with regards to those programs over 2023.
Amazing. Thank you, Christy. I'm very excited to share this information with you guys today. So let's get right into it.
That's the down button. Yeah. Gotta push it.
There we go. So as Christy mentioned, I'm going to be discussing today our education and community outreach programs here at Kawartha Conservation. I can figure out how to work the mouse. So a quick presentation outline. We're going to go over our education programs we offer to our schools, our partners in education, some of the community outreach programs that we offer to the public. And then, of course, I'm going to cover off the different events that we host here at Kawartha Conservation, including our Fall Fest, Christmas at Ken Reed, and the Illuminated Forest. So to start with our education programs, we had a really big uptake in education this year. So we here at Kawartha Conservation offer education programming to school groups from kindergarten all the way up to grade 12. Part of this is that we hosted 15 different education sessions this year, and we welcomed over 500 students out to our conservation areas and interacted with them as part of this programming. This ended up equaling 10 different schools from across our watershed and a total of 17 different classes. Some of these sessions included nature hikes, so we would take them out and they would learn about micro macros. We did some soil programs with them, teaching about the different elements of soil. We also did orienteering rocks and minerals, forest senses, and one of our most popular programs was water bugs. Since this year alone, education, we've seen a huge increase in it. From last year, in 2022, we served 3 classes and totaled about 90 students doing our education program. So we had a lot of youngsters coming through this year and participating with us in our school groups. And even pre-COVID, going back to that, we delivered about 5 different programs to about 3 different school groups. So there has been a massive uptake in our education programs here. So with that, we also have a lot of partners in education. So for our school groups, that's staff on the ground teaching students and interacting with them. For our partners in educations, this is us facilitating space and outdoor use or facilities for people to come out and experience. And through that, we have 9 different organizations that we've partnered with or we work with closely who use our facilities on a very regular basis to incorporate outdoor spaces into their programming. This resulted in 15 bookings for us and 81 days of groups visiting our conservation areas to use outdoor spaces. So just with that, some of the groups that we've actually partnered with include Atlas Forest School. So Atlas Forest School runs just that forest school out of Kenreid Conservation Area here 2 days a week. And in the summer, they also do summer camps. So this year alone, they had a huge uptake. In the spring, Atlas Forest School was only able to do 1 day of summer school a week, or forest school a week, I should say. And in the summer, they did 2 weeks of day camps. Now they are up to 2 days a week. So they join us every Monday and Wednesday, bring the youngsters out and they explore the forest and use our facilities to host their programming. We also have Ecopa Environmental. So this is another environmental education program. They offer ELC courses, environmental impact study courses, and they use our facilities in our field center for 3 to 4 weeks of the year. And they certify students on how to go out and do these trainings using our natural areas. We've also got educational groups such as Compass Early On that uses our facilities very regularly throughout the summer, bringing these children out for their programming. We also, Fleming, of course, have very strong connections with them, be it their students coming out to use our space in their courses or us hosting an educational session. So our IWM team went out and they taught them how to use seine nettings, and that was part of their programming. And another partnership that we have is actually with Pinois. So the Pinois Association, again, often uses our facilities to ensure that they're incorporating outdoor spaces into their programming. And with that, we will sometimes offer them educational sessions where our staff are participating in these events, or alternatively, they are self-guided, they come out and they use our green spaces and they run themselves. With that, we also welcomed out many schools outside of education this year. So we had 2 cross-country runs and a 5 10K marathon, all hosted through school groups out on our property this year, which welcomed out over 1,200 students, plus all their parents and their spectators into the conservation area. So we also offer community outreach to our public. So this would include all of our guided hikes, our forest therapy sessions, and our community plantings. So this year we offered 8 guided hikes to the public, which saw a total of 36 participants. These hikes included topics such as tree identification, forest management, wetlands, and I believe we did some bird ID and some mushroom identification hikes as well. Christy here was able to host 7 public forest therapy sessions, and I believe she also hosted 3 private forest therapy sessions as well, where she was gone out to different organizations to participate with them and offer forest therapy to their groups. And we were also able to host 3 different community plantings here at Kenreid this year, thanks to TD Friends of the Environment grant that we were able to secure. This allowed us to do plantings along our new disc golf course and get the community out and involved with helping to plant species to protect for either erosion or provide new habitat for pollinators in different areas. One of the other events that we've actually also continue each year, and I believe this was our 13th or 14th year of doing it, is our annual garlic mustard pull. So every year we invite the public and Fleming College out, and we hit a couple different spots in the area and spend a full day pulling garlic mustard and removing invasive species from within the conservation area as well, which provides us a really great opportunity to do some hands-on education and training with the public. So the other big things that we do here at Kawartha Conservation are our very large scale community events. So Kawartha Fall Fest just recently passed. This took place on September 28th this year. This was our second annual Kawartha Fall Fest. We had an amazing turnout. We saw about 700 people come out for the day. Last year, we saw roughly the same number of people come out. However, we hosted it over 6 days last year. So this year we condensed it to one day and we were able to see the same number of guests come out and enjoy a variety of live shows, nature interpretation, and just really experience the conservation area in its full glory. So next, as I'm sure you are all aware, we have Christmas at Ken Reid coming up next Saturday, December 2nd. This is going to be our fourth Christmas at Ken Reid event. Last year, we had terrible weather for Christmas at Ken Reid, just horrid. And we were still able to welcome out about 600 families who came out and endured that terrible weather to experience the magic of Christmas at Ken Reid. Previous to COVID, our second Christmas, we had over 1,500 people join us for that day. We are expecting a very large turnout next Saturday. Yeah, very, very large turnout. I'm sure you're all aware the day is filled with lots of events, live shows, visits from Santa, stories, and more. And this is an event that we are very proud to host and be a part of.
Might have snow.
Yes, it's kind of something like, yeah.
Are we supposed to get snow?
Yep.
A little bit. So the last event that I'm going to talk to you about is our illuminated forest. This is new. Last year was the first time that we did this. We took it upon ourselves to decorate about 200 meters of trail with illuminated lights, and we ran it for the month of December. We had over 1,000 people come out and witness the illuminated forest, and that's just from what we were able to track. We are doing the illuminated forest again, which will be starting the evening of Christmas at Ken Reid and running for the month of December as well. For this year, we are going to have some additional staff on site, so we'll be able to track more numbers and see what kind of public attendance we are receiving at the illuminated forest. And this event received a lot of interest. We were getting a lot of phone calls last year to extend this and continue it for as long as we possibly could. We spent an hour yesterday setting up some trees out in the forest. And as the guests were walking through, we received a lot of positive comments from people excited to see it happen again. So we are working on this right now, and we are expecting just as many people to come out and visit us for the illuminated forest this year. That sums up all of the different events, the community outreach programs, and education that we offer at Kawartha Conservation. Any questions?
Did great.
So,
One question, not to be a Grinch or anything, but do we paint any painting when all these people visit?
Yeah, so for the illuminated forest, we do, the parking fee still stands. So we are hoping that by having staff on site this year as well, we're going to be able to better enforce that and see higher uptake and compliance with that as well. Christmas at Ken Reid and Fall Fest, they are free for the community. Have out, however, started sponsorship programs. So we have reached out to some local businesses and members of the public, and we have started collecting some sponsors that will help support some of these community events. With that, one of the items that we did was new to both Christmas at Ken Reid and Fall Fest this year, we implemented vendor markets. So we actually welcomed out local businesses and makers in our communities who paid a fee for a vendor space, and some of those fees went towards offsetting some of the costs. So we are looking for ways that we can slowly continue to increase revenue during our events.
And I will say as well, all the facility rentals, the education programs and those things that Melissa was talking about, first off, those are all their fees associated with that. So those are all sort of a cost recovery basis.
Right. I mean, I do think that the Christmas at Ken Reid should be free, for sure. I do agree, but it's nice to somehow along in there gain some revenue.
Exactly. Yeah.
yes, ma'am.
Through you, it's just more of a compliment to congratulate you guys because you really have evolved and just I watched the whole outreach last year when the illuminated forest came out and you responded, and just to see how, you know, the uptake from the community is amazing too, right? And Christy, you're with me when I was with my 2.5-year-old granddaughter this past summer, and she looks up and goes, "Nanny, this is beautiful.
Look, beautiful forest."
I can't wait to bring her to the forest this year. So it's, you know, it's for all ages, and so you should be congratulated.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I have just one. When it comes to advertising the programs, the Christmas, the Illuminated Forest, are you guys doing any advertising down south?
Yeah, so through you, back to you. We do a lot of social media. John does a phenomenal job of making sure that our social media is out there. We do targeted ads to different communities. Last year, we ran sort of full page spreads in like in the GTA papers. We didn't do that this year because we just found that it didn't really generate. There was an opportunity for people to let us know how they heard of us. And that was not one of the ways that they did. But yeah, we definitely make sure that we get the word out there as far and as wide. And I think John could probably speak more specifically to how he works his magic.
We'll chat. Because I think there's a couple of Facebook groups, especially in the Scugog area, that if the material was on, we would get more people taking the drive up. Because I think they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah. Through you, Mr. Chair. We belong to the Google Ad Grants program as well. So we do a series of targeted Google ads for things like Fall Festival and Christmas at Kennery, the Illuminated Forest, that specifically targets areas. I refer to it as the 100-mile die-in sort of area. So Peterborough, Coburg, Port Hope, Belleville, the GTA, Durham, Mississauga, sort of that whole area, and sort of blanket that. And we have recently, I guess earlier this summer, sort of joined the Port Perry bulletin or the Facebook group there. And so we've started utilizing some of those groups, especially with the decline of traditional news media. We've started using those a lot more and found some pretty impressive success connecting out.
Right, great.
Comment? Yeah, for you, Mr. Chair. As I said earlier, great presentation. You did great for your first time. Just on education and the forest schools, that sort of thing. We have the Ontario Climate Caucus, which I sit on, and Diane Sachs is on there. So it's just like amazing, the things I'm learning. But Toronto just passed a motion, I believe, to bring in a youth corps to the municipality. And so that's something that I'm thinking about, and maybe we can partner with something like that to get kids engaged in the environment.
Interesting.
That's the comment. And I suggest, all the counselors here to check that out, the Ontario Climate Caucus. It's amazing the things that I've learned, and I've been involved in the environment for a long time. So
fabulous.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, can I get a motion to receive the presentation on community outreach and education programming for this year? All right, perfect, great, thank you. And a vote, please. Excellent. Very good for your first time. Congratulations.
Pressure's on.
Okay, we are going to move to staff reports, and we're going to talk about permits issued by designated staff. Matt?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. As found on page 30 of the November's agenda, the total number of issued permits by designated staff were 37 permits during October. This reporting period shows an improvement to our permit issuance statistics, for 86% of the permits were viewed within the 12 timeframes, and 89% were issued within the calc timelines. We are seeking resolution that section 28 permits issued by staff has been received. Thank you.
There you go.
Like it. Finest time. Okay, any questions on the permit issue? Yes, sir.
Just one through you, Mr. Chair, from a constituent who was very interested in conservation and watching. They noticed that often the reason for a delay or a days over is a site visit. And their question is, wouldn't that be somebody's job? So is it as simple as it seems that if we had more staff, it's just a staffing issue alone? Just sometimes it'll appear to come site visit required, and that's the reason that we were days over. So they weren't critical. It was the opposite. They were wondering how they could contribute. What is the rationale behind so frequently a site visit was needed, and therefore we were over. They're wondering why that wouldn't be part of someone's job. That's the question has to be. And if it's one person.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. It's really dependent on the situation. Each site is different, and site visits often can determine whether how close you are to, let's say, a steep slope, or if you're in the floodplain and items like that. So a lot of work we've been receiving right now is kind of the time of the year where you can start to do shoreline work, because there's prohibitions between I can't remember the exact dates, like April to August, I want to say, where you cannot work in the water because of fish spawning and other activities. So when you're working on the shoreline, though, we have to do more site visits. Well, we don't have to. Generally, it occurs more often that we go to verify where elevations are and other features. So it could be just the nature of this, just the time of year, and that happening with this. And I mean, it would always be great to have more staff.
That's a great information. Thank you.
Awesome. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
To the chair, now in the tracking, are there situations where people do apply for things and they're rejected, or they just withdraw it at some point because of the stuff they have to overcome to get a completion? I don't see any tracking for any of that. I just wondered if that happens.
Through you. So yes, that happens. It can occur where people are either frustrated that we are either regulating some of their structures, or like here's a good instance. You want a boathouse, you want to put in a nice, let's say, second floor on there, so you can get an in-law suite or something, but that's prohibited by our regulations as well. So that might be an instance that would come up, and then they either withdraw or come back with a new set of drawings, and that does cause some friction occasionally. There's a lot of instances where that could occur.
How would that show up on your tracking when I'm looking at that information?
Oh, I see. So on our tracking, generally, if we can't permit something, we'll let them know, and we stop our timeline to negotiate with them what's occurring if it's deemed incomplete. Usually it is deemed incomplete at that point because we've done our preliminary review of the application, and we don't have all the information. Usually when they throw us, they don't say what it is. We just see an extra floor, so we have an incomplete picture. Or if they do have everything, then we try to expedite the second portion after we deemed an application complete to complete it. Sometimes that does extend it a little bit past the deadline.
That okay?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So just, I mean, I guess building off of that, would this be a function of adding a column or two to the existing spreadsheet tracking that would show incomplete or those other sort of issues? Or, you know, is that something that we don't typically report out in these types of formats, or withdrawn? Yeah, anything that would just indicate another column here that would say status of the permit numbers.
Through you, typically if they withdraw, it would drop from our stats completely.
Okay.
If there is an instance like that, or reasoning that adding a new column really doesn't have much information, maybe we can refine our descriptions a little bit better so that they're all clear.
Any other questions? Okay, can I get a motion to receive the section 28 permits issued by staff? And those would be permits issued 2023-379-2410, and the permits revised 2023-278-279-281-350 and -396. Mover seconder, thank you, and a vote. Perfect, thank you very much. Now we are going to move on to the interim financial statements. I know everybody's favorite portion of the conversation is financial statements. So Jonathan, you know, you get center stage again. Put the spotlight.
Mr. Chair, it's the most exciting part for me.
Exactly. Exactly.
So through Mr. Chair, we are pleased to provide our quarterly financial update today. I would like to recognize Alex Kornicki, who's our county business analyst. He had a tremendous effort in getting this together. And he's just past his 1 year mark at Kawartha Conservation. So at September 30th, we are in a strong position as seen in the financial statements, and we are on target for our 2023 budget. So we have provided our detailed financial statement, and I'll just touch on a few highlights to bring to the board's attention. So all of our operating departments are right on target for this time of year. You'll see we're around the 75% mark at the end of the third quarter. And we are in good alignment for year end. So through operating, we've had great success in obtaining employment grants for all of our seasonal hires. Through Nancy's Innovation Hub, we have exceeded revenue targets in that department as well. Floodplain efforts have been focused on the Trent Lakes projects at Mississaugas and Nogeese Creek, as well as the City of Kawartha Lakes floodplain project as well. So efforts have, through multi-partner collaboration on the Halliburton project, we won't be able to hit our targets on that as we are waiting for a few components on that project to move forward to our areas. And we're also, as everyone's aware, seeing interest rate hikes and sustained levels there. So we have seen increased revenue through our investment income on our corporate account, contributing to additional revenues. As a whole, looking at our special benefiting projects that we're completing for specific municipalities, we are on track. And just looking at general benefiting projects, you will see that we haven't had any expenditures occur today, but the projects are in progress. We do have open purchase orders for the environmental monitoring project. It's a matter of supplier delays, so we're just waiting for some of that equipment to arrive. And through the digitization of corporate records, a lot of efforts have been focused on the planning and permitting documents for ease of retrieval. There's just been a shift in focus through to get our CALC standards back to higher numbers, and we're just in the midst of securing a vendor and some files to go out right now. So just as an overall segue, we are looking into a good spot, and we're now kind of working towards our rollover activities and getting discussions with auditors for 2023 audit and prepping for 2024 budget.
Fantastic. Excellent. Any questions?
Just quickly.
Yes, ma'am.
Maybe Nancy, I've forgotten what your innovation hub is about. I'm sorry. I was going, oh, that's great. It's making money.
So the Innovation Hub is a professional training service that.
Right. Thank you.
So
I've got it.
Yeah. So we've done very well this year. We have also now signed on with the contractor to come back in 2024. So I think I have 5 courses lined up already for next year. We seem to have hit the market for the VEPTIC course, the exam prep course that we offer. They have now requested us be the main point of delivery for this. It sometimes it happens all over the place, but this consultant really likes our area. So I think we've hit that mark.
Good. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I mean, fantastic. We seem to be in great shape. So I applaud the work that you have both been doing and the entire team. It's great to know that we're in good fiscal shape. So I applaud the efforts. So can I get a mover and a seconder to receive the interim financial statements? And Harold. Okay, great. And a vote, please. Fantastic. Thank you very much. And we will move on to 7.3, the CAO report.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Highlight, there's a lot of information there, of course. I'll just highlight a few particular components that are, I think, are fairly interesting. John's already mentioned a lot of the corporate services work translate over into next year with the auditing processes that are going to start up fairly soon, and of course the budget. Which we have a draft for you today. But I'll just highlight one of the communications pieces, which is pretty cool, I think. And that's through John's good efforts, John Chambers. And so he's really into search engine optimization and making sure people get the message. So this is an example of how we're able to do that. Admittedly, it's a bit of an obscure piece of equipment, a Van Doren sampler. However, other people use it too. And so it was highlighted as the top search item in YouTube and in, I believe it was Google, Google search when you look up a Van Doren sampler. So we had a video that was produced on how to use it. And, yeah, a lot of the US sites that are out there doing similar water quality type work. And so I think that's a pretty big accomplishment. So pretty exciting. The other aspect I'll just mention is that we did start the pay equity and compensation review. So that's underway. I look forward to that wrapping up in the new year. It'll be early in the new year, but that's already underway, which is great. And we've heard back from a lot of the comparators saying that they're willing to participate. So that's great news. A couple of them have already gone through their updates recently as well. So it's good to have that more recent market comparison. In terms of information technology, there's lots of work that's going on. One that our chair just picked up on in a little bit was that we're actually operating 2 different systems right now. We had our system actually, there's a better term for that, not work. And so we're actually using 2 laptops for the presentations, one of course for the video, but one also to operate this piece here. So there's lots of things that go on in terms of trying to make sure information technology works in the office and for everyone that's here, relying on that information. So we are very active on that, and our IT guy is excellent. Put his name out there, Warren Dodd. So he's fantastic, has tons of experience, and is really shaping up our IT. I will mention as well what you saw from the calc statistics, but you can see that the efforts that we've put in focusing in on the permitting activities is paying dividends. So it's just about where we want to see it, just under 90% compliance with those standards, which as a reminder, we actually reduced by 1/3. So that's about a week off of what the provincial guidance is. So that's been a big focus, and just congrats to the team for being able to achieve that. And I'll mention a couple of kind of neat things that have happened in the recent past. We work as a 5CA collaborative with the Durham region. They have their environmental awards every year, and so this year the tree planting initiative, which you've heard highlighted in some a little bit in the presentation, but a little bit in the CAO reports that we offer, is received the award. One of the awards, it was the Jessica Markland Partnership Award. So it's nice to be recognized for that as collaborative. Christy, which you would see in the report there, was one of the recipients for that, and there's a couple of Central Lake Ontario members as well that were at the event. It's held in Durham, so Logan is very close, which is nice to have them recognize that with us. And then we were also part of with the City of Kawartha Lakes EAC committee and the bird friendly city that has been initiated. One of our technicians, Rob Stavinga, he's a big bird guy, sits on that committee. And so we did a bit of work with that committee. We have a new birding migration sign at our observation platform. And so that whole initiative, the bird friendly City of Kawartha Lakes and birds friendly Peterborough, were awarded Nature Canada's 2023 Conservation Partner of the Year award. So that's fantastic as well. And I think the only other thing I'll mention is that we are always looking at integrating procedures internally in order to make our time more efficient. And so we've highlighted one of those, which is our flood forecasting tool internally in order to help with our daily flood forecasting activities. So we've utilized some of the experience that we've had with R and pulling information from different websites to help us pull together all of our forecasting information. So we've, I believe, reduced what used to take us probably the better part of an hour or a bit more, depending on the flooding situations that we're in, to about 5 minutes. So that's a tremendous advantage of kind of using technology to your advantage, and that was spearheaded through Nancy's team. So that's great. We started snow courses as well, preparing for the year. And I did put a couple of sheets on everyone's desk as well, just to make sure you're aware that Christmas at Henry is coming up December 2nd. So lots of activity on that front, and also and erosion control symposium. This is the draft agenda. I think there might be still a few tweaks here and there, but that is largely what some of the topics will be. So just want to put a plug out there for some events in the very near future. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, and through you. Do I understand it correctly that you recently acquired a Van Dorn machine and this helps staff do bathymetry? And therefore you no longer have to go out to expensive consultants? Is that what you're saying?
So yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Mr. Chair, is those are two separate programs. So there, one is the communications piece around the water quality sampling. That's the Van Dorn sampler.
And what do you, so what, that is a Van Dorn sampler?
No, that's the communication piece. So it's basically a PVC pipe with two suction cups on it attached with an elastic. And as you put it up, it's messenger down, it's like a piece of steel that trips the thing and closes it. You collect water quality at the spot where you want it in the water column. That's the communications piece that we were able to be top search in YouTube and Google search on that specific.
Wow.
The other element is Galen Yerk, so you see kind of quietly sitting there, the dapper gentleman there. And so bathymetry is looking at the underwater contours. So that'd be creeks, streams, lakes. And so in this case, through Galen's good work, he's been doing floodplain mapping for a long time. And so what we did was, through his expertise, we've been able to eliminate the need for consultants on the Mississaugas and Nogies Creek sections of the floodplain that we're doing. So that saves a bit of money for the project and keeps Galen very busy.
Okay, thank you.
And that's done through certainly great equipment.
Thank you for your question.
Yes, sir.
Three quick things through you, Mr. Chair. One, that media puzzle that was mentioned in the report with no newspaper locally, and there was a reference to that. I had an idea capitalizing on that video, and because it was great. It was so funny the way you just brought it back down to what the video did. Could we pledge as a council, as a group of directors, could we pledge to post at least 10 conservation items per month? Just each of us. So, that was such a cool video. And my tag is always going to be conservation's cool. And people get used to 10 times a month seeing councilors meetings, conservation's cool. And so you send me the video, that video. So I just thought that's about 2,000 people, 3,000 people that will be connecting with each month about different conservation. Because what we're trying to do is promote the idea that conservation is cool, not just get out to the conservation of here, which is fantastic, but also live it. So it's just a thought I had. So my pledge to everybody is to get 10 posts a month.
Okay, I'll sign on to that.
It's just an innocent pledge. I don't need to make a motion.
Do we have 10 reliable pieces of content?
My web presence is not great. I don't think I'll finish.
Do we have that many?
We would have more than enough content.
Okay, perfect.
Well, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. Yeah, or we could work on a number.
I send a lot around already.
The second thing was when I was reading through the water fund initiatives, the different things that were in the waterfront initiative, it reminded me of, we did a landfill tour. We did on the landfill committee, we did a field trip to the landfill, of course. And seeing some of those, I wondered if we could do a field trip at some point, maybe 6-7 months from now. It doesn't have to be planned now, because it's such a great group of people. And I thought it'd be really fun to do. If we could pick one of those, you could pick one of those that's kind of central for all of our areas, and maybe go for a meeting, and that'd be our meeting, or also, or whatever's best. Just thought that'd be fun, because there's some really cool stuff in there. I'm like, I'd like to go see that, but maybe we all would like to go see that. And the last one was for the story walk, which I posted last night. That's awesome. That is so cool. And I just wondered, because of the last meeting, could it say parking? It says $4 parking. Could it mention that free for seniors? Since we've passed that now, it just says parking $4. I just wondered a little tiny thing. Could it say free for seniors, or is that pushing the envelope? Just since it is now.
So I believe the resolution, if I remember right, was that we wouldn't charge any extra.
For memberships, you're right. My apologies. Good. Yep. Got it.
You have to make another motion for.
No, literally it was innocuous. It came in my head. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions of the CAO? Yes, ma'am.
Through you. I just want to make another observation too. When you're talking about the media posts that John does generate, it's interesting to see how much, if you were, to put the map out there, how many different areas you actually hit with your different messages. So that's really lovely.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on me, not it's I just want to make sure we're putting out what he's.
Sneaking and I are going out of here.
Okay, anything else? Can I get a motion to receive the CAO monthly report, please? Thank you, and thank you, and a vote, please. Perfect, that has passed. All right, we will move on to 7.4 and go through correspondence, Mr. CAO.
Great to, thank you, Mr. Chair. So there are two pieces of correspondence that were forwarded on from Conservation Ontario, reflecting comments from the CA Collective and of course their policy analysis. So the first was on streamlining. They were both provincial proposals that went forward. One was streamlining environmental permission for stormwater management under the Environmental Activity and Sector Registry. So that amounts to deregulating the system. So would rely on the community in general to identify whether or not there were elements that would match that, match those sorts of activities, and then be able to essentially ensure compliance on their end. And the Conservation Ontario comments identified that there might be a few potential issues for that. Source water was one of the concerns I identified in that particular case, and the auditing process wasn't entirely clear. So that was really the main highlight for that particular one. The second was on streamlining permissions for water takings and for construction site dewatering activities and foundation drains. And similarly, the Conservation Ontario did have a few concerns around that particular proposal as well. And they were concerned, for instance, that there was not sufficient provincial oversight in all cases based on that proposal. And we were looking for a little bit more resolution on that. So those really are the summaries of those two pieces of correspondence, which were under consideration for ministry consultation.
Excellent. Very good. Any questions on the correspondence? All straightforward? Yes, sir.
Through the chair, do you see this moving forward or do you see this stumbling to a stop?
I see it probably as moving forward. And of course, in moving forward, the province usually will look at the comments that were submitted. So the process is that the government will post things on the Environmental Registry of Ontario. All the comment comes in during the commenting period, and then there's an obligation for the ministry to look at the comments that are provided and then make appropriate decisions based on what they propose. So a lot of times that will take the form of either accepting some of the comments that come forward, potentially putting a halt on the legislation if there's something serious that's identified, or passing the legislation as proposed. So it really just depends on the nature of the comments and the risk factor, I guess, that the province would see based on their analysis.
Any further questions? Okay, can I get a motion to receive the correspondence? Thank you, and yeah, thank you. All right, and a vote, please. Perfect, that is passed. All right, we're going to move on to action items. 8.1, the Fenland Falls South Tributary Floodplain. Matt, you're leading that one?
Yes.
Perfect. See, you've set a precedent of being really fast, so I mean,
Really. So there's Kawartha Conservation has taken up a project for the last 10 years with several water bodies within the City of Kawartha Lakes to provide floodplain mapping for. And the mapping that's being included for this resolution is the Fenland Falls South Tributary, which is my apologies. Which has a 0.91 kilometer squared of area and includes some rural drains, agricultural lands to the south, and the extents go from essentially the river, right where the falls is, all the way through to the Canadian Tire just behind there, and a little bit to the east. It stops a little bit by the school, and through the study, Galen has worked very hard through the past 3 years to get all the data that you can for the survey data and checking all the culverts and areas within that study area to make sure that all the drainage area is being mapped appropriately and get a higher resolution than what we had previously, which was very limited. Anyway, so if you have any questions or anything about myself or Guillaume can answer. Other than that, we seek a resolution that the board receive the Finland Falls South Tributary Main Mapping Study report and associated model, and it also be endorsed.
Any questions before we start the motion? Anybody? No? I didn't see you killing it. Killing it. All right, so can I get a mover to receive and endorse? Pat and seconder, Gary, all right, and a vote, please. Excellent. And we'll have a side motion to make sure that Matt presents everything. All right, so we'll move on to 8.2, bylaw update. Can you work us through that one?
Yep, great. So presented for your endorsement, this is your bylaw that governs the meeting procedures and sort of the function of the organization and the board. So the administrative bylaw was last updated, I believe it was last year, to look at some of the administrative components through the Conservation Authorities Act changes, and in April of this year, Conservation Ontario updated their model bylaw that included some additional components of those CA changes. A lot of them were around the agricultural member provisions. So we had included that in, for instance, as a membership component, but all the filter throughs on the various elements were not necessarily captured. So this just provides better resolution in terms of the very specific components around is an agricultural member eligible for elections, and how do they get their costs recovered and things like that. So it provides a better kind of indication of how to handle that member should one ever be appointed. We don't have one, but I know other CAs have. There's about 6 or 8, I believe, conservation authorities that have an agricultural member. And the other thing that the updates did was incorporate the Non-for-Profits Corporations Act, which there's 2 years to implement. We're just at the end of the first year, so we're in compliance, which is great. But that act changed as well, which impacted this organization. So there's a number of changes throughout the document that incorporate those changes. We also incorporated a few other elements, which included some of the audits from their legal review through Conservation Ontario. Great to leverage resources on that end through the Information Requirements Reg and also Bill 23. We included an additional piece as well, which was we noticed that our owners on the organization were probably a little bit outdated, I would call it, for owners of the organization. So we saw a need to probably define that a little bit better, so we can incorporate that within our process to make sure we have the right people identified for that and make sure that we can have those administrative changes. So we've identified that, for instance, as chair, vice chair, and myself and John, so we can actually log in and make the changes for the annual elections that occur. And I think other than that, I've highlighted a lot of the information in a summary chart that hopefully makes it a little bit easier than going through the entire document. But all the changes that were relevant are also track changes. So anyways, hopefully that made it easy for you. The only one I'll kind of pick out as a little bit of an interesting one is through the legal review, which is actually tied to the MFIPA Act, is that there is a requirement to provide written statement of any conflict of interest, and that we maintain a registry of that. So that actually is something that as municipalities you'd probably be familiar with. Ourselves less so, but we are governed by the same act. So that was part of the legal review that brought that in. So with that, I think that is my summary of the bylaw, and certainly welcome any questions you might have.
Fantastic. That was excellent. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. And through you, I remember that we also made a motion that a First Nations representative on the board could have voting status. I just wonder if there's if that has gone anywhere. And secondly, one of our board members was representing Mississaugas of Scugog, but I know they had an election at some point recently, and I don't know if that member who was here got reelected or.
Did not. That's
He did
why
not.
he's not been here.
So should we reach out to them to have a new member here? Is that something we could do?
Yeah, absolutely, through Mr. Chair. And that is exactly the reason they have elections. They actually have elections every 2 years. So the member that was appointed, he didn't get elected into council. So we have reached out a couple times or see, but we'll reach out again just to see whether or not they've been able to assign their profiles. And I know we did that last year, and then we had a member, fairly quickly. So we've done that, like I say, a couple times, but it was, I would say, closer to the election at that point in time. But we'll reach out again and make sure that we're still on the radar and they're still interested.
What about the other point?
And then the other point, there's been no uptake on that from the province in terms of voting.
So we just send a request and they don't respond.
They did not follow up other than I think a receipt of the email.
It's unfortunate that the Indian Act insists on elections every 2 years. It's a deterrence to government, because obviously, you can't get the benefits of a longer term. So it's one of the really awful parts of the Indian Act, actually.
Great, thanks. Sure.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. The agricultural representative, we don't have one. Have we ever had one?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, we never have. This is relatively recent. So this has really been implemented since, I'd have to double check, but no more than 4 years. And I think if you were to look at the time frame, it's probably less than that. So the appointments, my understanding was the first ones that got appointed were maybe 1.5 years to at most 2 years ago. So it's still relatively fresh for everyone.
And further to that, do we wish one?
I've through my network, Mr. Chair, I've heard that there are some very positive agricultural members that are sitting on boards, and I've also heard that sometimes in some cases it can be a little bit difficult when some appointments are made that might have some other interests at heart.
I can believe that, yes. Okay. Thank you, Raj. And the other was another just point of from the act here that's written in voting procedures, and we ran into this once the other night. This act says that the chair votes in every election. Is that how much you vote in these?
I mean, I would vote if there was a tiebreaker, but it's my understanding that I would not vote unless there is a tiebreaker.
Well, it's written in there that you do vote.
Yeah. Don't.
Start voting.
It was just a clarification of the point there. I wasn't sure because it did come up the other night.
Mm-hmm. True, I did.
Yeah.
This is when
it's under voting, I think on page 18, was it?
And it was
or 26 or 28 or what was it? Voting on page 28. Accordingly, the chair is entitled to vote.
Entitled's the word.
If the interpretation was the other night, now our acts might be different than yours, I'm not sure, but it says if they're in the meeting, they vote.
Yeah, and ours is 1 member, 1 vote for pretty much everything. There's no, to my recollection anyway, there's no change in terms of election procedures. It's the act is very general in terms of that point. So.
Right, so I guess the qualifier in that statement is the chair is entitled to vote. Okay, any other questions? Yes, sir.
Through the chair, just on that notion, personally, through our council and mayors and stuff, I, as a taxpayer, prefer that the chair, the mayor, whoever sits the front, I get the idea that they're there for a tiebreaker. But as a resident, I'd like to see what side they step on every time. And I think it's a decent way to, then we live stream everything and everything else, right?
Yeah.
So by voting yes or no, it may not change anything, but at a glance, a person in the area can say, oh, he was on this side of that issue at this point in time.
It's for recorded vote.
What it's worth.
Through chair, I know that at council, if there's a recorded vote, the mayor always votes.
Yes, of course. This is a recorded vote.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
And if it was a recorded vote, I would be required to do a recorded vote. The receiving of motions and things like that, I tend.
Yeah.
That doesn't matter. Yes, sir.
Just follow up to that. So because we live stream stuff and videotape stuff and it's a permanent record, that's my take on it, that anybody that tunes in at any time can say, okay, that individual was on this side of it.
Right. No, that sounds good. Great. Thank you for your addition there. Any other questions to the bylaw update? Okay, I'm gonna get the wording proper here. Can I get a motion that the amendments to the administrative and meeting procedural bylaw number 1 to achieve compliance with legislation updates and best governance practices be approved and adopted for use immediately? Can I get a mover and seconder? Harold, thank you, and Eric. And a vote, please. Thank you, everybody. Okay, so 8.3, the draft budget. Numbers, let's do it.
Mr. Chair, today we are pleased to bring forward our 2024 draft budget. So just going back in July, we had set our guidelines at 2.5% from an operating levy perspective year over year. In September, we had some further discussion on how we would apportion out some aspects of our programs and services. And then in October, we had gone through the full cost allocation methodology for our labor that's through our programs. And that brings us to today where we have our first draft budget. So we had used the 2023 operating levy as our baseline. As you know, we had the new O-reg come into place. So we're trying to work 2023 into 2024. So the 2024 budget, it has a familiar feel to 2023. In the sense of the layout through special projects, which are the category 2s in the operating programs. And we did take the opportunity while we were going through this to kind of try to streamline some things. So using familiar language throughout the whole budget, referring to specific items and consistency. So we have brought forward today the 2024 budget, and you'll see throughout there, we have identified the programs and services into the categories that the province has put into place. So the general, mandatory, municipal, and other programs and services. Well, working with that 2.5% guideline. So some of the key changes here in 2023, items such as our operating levy covered our general basis. And now that is really broken out into 3 different programs into 2024. So one of the things I do want to note in 2024, it's our first year going through this. It's a transitory year. There will probably be learning opportunities and areas to shift this. And one of the areas I had spent a lot of time on was just trying to do the comparisons from 2023 to 2024 to try to compare the one year to the next and make sure it seems reasonable. When you're looking at a budget year, going from 2024 to 2025, we'll have that same base there. So it'll be the representative year variances will see more aligned. With that, we still have some looming legislative or regulations that are to come that we haven't received specific definitions on, regarding the Bill 23 regulatory exemptions for anything going through the Planning Act. Might not require permits through us, so that could impact revenues. We don't know the certainty on that. And we're still waiting on the Section 28, which will impact our wetland setbacks. I think they're currently at 90 meters. They're looking at going down to 30 meters, which would then impact our regulated area, possibly impacting revenues as well. And there's also the definition on water course changes. So these are, we don't know exactly when the regulations will come. They could have impact into next year. Our general benefiting projects, we kept flat year over year. And those being our environmental monitoring strategy, which is a 10-year project, and our records management initiative for digitization of records. Looking at inflation, as we know, we're still battling through that. The Bank of Canada is read through their October monetary policy report, and it's still the same projections of, next year anticipating it will, calm down mid-year and see it the following year get towards that target area. But also in the same breath, the follow sentence is there's a considerable amount of uncertainty towards that as well. So we're still navigating these times. Fortunately for us, we're not bearing any debt right now. But it is seeing impact on our procurement pieces, right? So still trying to do the same pot of money, but the scope of work might be a little less. For example, you're doing less linear feet of, say, fencing, just to increase costs. I'll just touch on municipal guidelines. I'll just summarize that quickly, but as of right now, we are in accordance with every municipality's guideline. We're still waiting on the region's final guidelines, but I've been in discussions with them and know where it's trending towards, and we're on a good basis there. And Mark's been out to City of Kawartha Lakes for their budget presentation, Trent Lakes, and we'll be heading towards Cavan on December 4th. So that's the budget. I'm happy to take any questions. There's a lot of information that we're going through transitory year there. So thank you for allowing me just to highlight some of the key points there.
Awesome, thank you. Budget questions. Nothing. Okay, if there are no questions, I think that the numbers are great. It is a lot of information, but if everybody's taking the time to read it, I think is presented in a really straightforward way. So seeing no questions, I'm going to ask for a motion that the draft budget proceed and that the final draft be presented for approval to circulate to the member municipalities at the January 25th, 2024 board meeting. Mover, seconder, Gary and Peter, and vote please. Thank you, everybody. All right, so we will move on to 8.4 CA Act Transition Plan Update. Mark.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll keep this short and sweet. I've been out to Municipal Council, to City of Kawartha Lakes, Trent Lakes in the last couple of weeks. They both passed resolutions of support for the MOU, which is great. I was at Trent Lakes 2 days ago, and in Cavan Monaghan coming up in about a week and a little bit. And I've been in discussion with their CAO, and she's indicated that there will be moved forward with support as well. And we're working with the region.
All right, excellent. Any questions? I like these succinct presentations today. This is fantastic. No questions at all? All right, can I get someone to move the staff report on phase 2 transition activities related to the Conservation Authority Act changes be received? All right, and a vote, please. Thank you, everybody. Okay, so that wraps up the main portion of the event. We'll be moving on to dessert and a song. Yeah. So is there any new business? Yeah.
Peter's item.
I'm sorry. Peter, did you want to bring your item forward?
Do that.
About
just to support the.
To support, you want to bring that forward?
Yes.
Make a motion.
Okay, so there wasn't anything in particular. So did you want to do it right now, or did you want to just have it in the December meeting?
We can do it in December.
December's fine, are you sure?
Yeah,
Because
fine.
we have a resolution here if you wanted to move that forward right now.
I can move it forward now. Too.
Okay, that's fine.
I'll move it forward.
All right, so we have some rough language for the resolution. I'll just read this, make sure that you're okay with it. Resolve that the concept of the Highlands Corridor as the nature-based solution to building climate change resilience proposed by the Halliburton Highlands Land Trust be supported. Is that
Yeah,
You're comfortable with that?
I'm comfortable with that.
All right, yeah, are you gonna move that?
I'll move that.
Okay, Pat seconds that, and can I get everybody to vote on that, please? Fantastic. So we'll just have to record that separately. All right, any other new business? No other new business. Okay, reports, updates from board members. This is our gossip portion of the evening. So does anybody have anything to add? Harold?
Yeah, I can just report, it was in the CEO's report, but I'll just mention it anyway, that even though the LSAP project is in limbo right now, I'd like to report that the oil separators in the Bagwater Creek area are in the process of being installed as we speak, and hopefully have that in within a month and have that input cleaned up and well on the way to the improvement of the lake quality in Port Grey Bay.
Very exciting.
Yeah, I think so. We could use a few more, but that's a good start.
Any other things that people would like to share? Updates, observations? Nothing at all? Okay, so I'm gonna ask then, if there's nothing else, if I can get a vote to move us into closed session. Brianna and Eric, okay, and a vote, everybody? All right, we are going to be moving to closed session. Thank you very much, everybody. Fantastic as always.
And sure, please keep Christine. Keep this, and then we'll do it, Matt. Next week.
Okay, that's fine.